I, 17 male, might be the a-hole, and I might be a big one, but I wanted to get people's insight. So my dad left my mom when I was 14 to be with his wife, the woman he was cheating on my mom with. My dad didn't want me to think badly of him, but I did. He knew I did, and he knew he couldn't change my mind easily. We always knew my parents would end up with shared custody until I was 17 at least. From experience, the judges in family court will stop enforcing shared custody when a kid turns 17 and speaks out. Any younger, and they insist on 50-50. I also knew mom would struggle on her own because while she did work, she never made as much as my dad. She also wouldn't get child support because of the 50-50, and it wasn't ordered even with the difference in income. So when dad pleaded with me to give him a chance to show he could still be a good dad, and he said he would do anything for me, I told him to keep supporting mom and make sure she wasn't going to end up struggling while he got off easy. I told him she deserved that at least after what he did, and that I deserved to see my mom doing well. My dad agreed, and he paid it as child support instead of spousal support, or whatever it's called. It really helped mom, and she actually went back to school so she could get a better job. Dad is still paying the money. He knows I appreciate him doing it, and he also knows it's one of the only reasons I didn't just decide to say duck him and never want a relationship again. My mom is also less stressed. She has mixed feelings about my dad giving her money when legally he doesn't need to, but she also knows this is the only way for me not to feel the need to help support her. Where my dad's wife comes into it is this. She never liked that my dad paid child support. She never liked that I insisted on it for my dad and I to have a relationship. But now my dad's house is struggling a bit, and some changes need to be made. His wife's son and daughter were in dance, football, softball, karate, music lessons, and an art class as paid extracurriculars. My dad and his wife also have a baby together. The wife's kids had to cut 2 activities because they can't afford it anymore. It pisses his wife off because if dad wasn't paying the money, they could still afford those things. She told me I should stop obligating my dad to support mom because they need it more and my mom isn't their problem. I told her she and her kids are not my problem. She told me they're a family, while mom is not her and her kids' family or my dad's anymore. I told her she and her kids are dad's family, but not mine. She told me they need all of dad's money right now before more things need to be cut back on. I shrugged in response. She told me I was so callously flippant, and it wasn't a good look to care so little about my siblings' lives. Only one of her kids, the baby, is technically my half-sibling. Am I the a-hole? Absolutely not the a-hole. Dad didn't have to agree to pay your mom to buy your acceptance, and stepmom should have spoke up then if it was a problem. She probably did, but didn't push it so dad's conscience could be erased. Stepmom is just paying the price for cheating with a married man, and dad is suffering for his part too. Karma is a witch. Not the a-hole. If your stepmom has an issue with the arrangement, then that's for her to raise with your dad, not take up with you. I do slightly see where she's coming from, though. How long will your relationship with your dad be contingent on him financially supporting your mom? Not the a-hole. I would speak to your dad regarding his wife's behavior. I would even go so far as to say maybe she went after him for his money. He's not financially responsible for her kids. They have a dad, and I bet their dad pays child support. And if he's not, why? If she keeps complaining, just tell her this is karma for what she and your dad did. You don't screw over good people and expect to live well. Her kids will now pay for her actions. My narcissistic mother previously disowned me for some time, but later came around. I was pressured by family to forgive her and forget the cruel things she said. Like an idiot, I did forgive her. However, I'm pretty sure she's disowning me today again. I ducked up pretty badly at Mother's Day. My family had a Mother's Day dinner at my grandparents' home, and everyone was invited. My entire family showed up except my mother and sister. When my stepfather showed up, my grandfather asked why my mom hadn't come. My stepfather admitted that they had a fight. Apparently, he gave her a gift but forgot to hug her, and she lost it. He ended up bringing my brother, but my sister and mom were pissed. That didn't surprise us. My egg donor has a habit of getting angry about small details like that. During the dinner, my sister texted me to vent about her awful dad. She said that mom was really hurt because he didn't hug her. She went on a rant and finished up by saying that mom is suspicious that he's cheating on her. That's not a surprise either. There's rampant cheating on both sides. Here's where I ducked up. I thought my sister knew about my mom cheating. If she knew about her dad, Then she must know about her. Well, she didn't. So when I accidentally told her about it, all hell broke loose. My sister didn't believe me and said I was lying. At that point, I blew up. Since 11, I knew about Mom's affairs. She would make me delete phone conversations from her phone and hide evidence. She would also tell me explicit details about her S life with other married men and would point out where she met them for S when we drove around town. At 11 years old, I knew that and was expected to keep it a secret. Hell, she even asked me for relationship advice for her affair partner. Again, I was 11. I don't know what happened, but something in me broke. Suddenly, I was 11 again and expected to carry this massive burden. I snapped and told my sister all my trauma. Nothing explicit, but just that she would make me hide her texts. My sister confronted my mom and she lost it. She sent me texts insulting me, called me a crazy liar, and said I ruined Mother's Day. My grandmother is angry that I couldn't keep my mouth shut, and my sister is angry at my mom. I feel awful for not keeping quiet, but I don't know what happened. I just suddenly got all of those emotions I had as a kid and couldn't stop them. It made me angry that she pretended that it never happened, but I had to carry this weight on my shoulders since 11. Now I'm just waiting for the fallout. Update. My grandparents went to visit my mom and gave her some leftover food. Apparently, I made her ill. Her blood pressure was sky high and she was furious. She keeps telling my siblings that I'm lying and she can't believe I would make up something like this. My sister says she won't drop it and keeps trying to paint me as a villain. My grandparents are now furious at me too. They know it's true. My grandmother knew about the affair when it was happening, but they said I need to learn to keep my mouth shut. That apparently I might have just ruined her marriage, and I could be the reason why she ends up having a stroke. My grandmother said I could cause her to fight with her husband. My grandmother said it was none of my business and I should keep my mouth shut. I agree. It wasn't any of my business, but she made it my ducking business when she dragged me into her affair. I'm furious that I'm always the villain for sharing my trauma. She can do whatever the hell she wants, but I have to let her. Otherwise, I'm the one that gets the blame. I know some people think I need to cut family off, and I do, but I can't right now. I live with my grandparents. I rely on them financially since I'm in college. I genuinely can't before graduating and finding a job. I just don't know what I can do to get them to understand that I'm not the villain for being A. The only thing you ruined was the illusion of your mother as a flawless woman. Flawless mother, flawless wife, flawless marriage. It's not your job to be the tugboat for hauling someone else's crappy life choices through the swamp of BS they created. It's not your job to reconcile any of this for the people in her life who enable her antics or tolerate her BS. To tell those details to a child is gross and inappropriate. I'm so sorry you were put through that. I will say this, you didn't forgive her. You put on an act because people expected that of you. The concept of perfect family and perfect child and mother relationships is TV BS, and it's upsetting to let go of it, but you need to. She hasn't changed. She's just got different accomplices and victims. I wouldn't even wait on the fallout. Cut off anyone who has an issue with your honesty. It's not your job to carry the heavy weight of disgusting secrets like that around your whole life. Tell anyone who asks the truth. Their reaction towards you should determine if they're worthy of being in your life. You were a child, and you still are the child in this situation. While that trashy behavior is between you and your parents, your mom explicitly involved you in the details. This is a form of manipulation and emotional A. Tell the story if you want. It's not your job to keep the gross secrets of super dysfunctional people who have tried to blame you for their BS. I've been divorced from my first husband for 5 years. We have a 13-year-old son together. My son and I are both very close to my ex-mother-in-law. She is a wonderful, sweet woman who has been extremely generous and supportive to me in my life, especially in my son's babyhood, as I was a very young mother. We lived with him for the 3 years after he was born, and she was another parent to him and to me. I love her like my own mom. My ex cheated on me and left me for another woman. After we divorced, my relationship with his mom became more distant, but was still warm. He and his new wife are geographically close to her, and obviously I don't want to be invasive in their lives. I've been pleasant, but left connecting up to her for the most part. She isn't naturally an outgoing person, and so I make sure she knows I'm thinking about her, send pictures and updates about her grandson, etc. I was surprised this past week when she texted me and told me that we needed to talk. She told me that her husband of 33 years had met another woman online and has been having an affair for 2 years. She wanted to talk to me about this because it affects my son's summer visit. She helps my ex with him while he's at his dad's. Honestly, my son spends more time with her than his dad, and also wanted to talk to me because I've been through it. Her soon-to-be ex is still living at her house. I absolutely will not put my son in that sort of toxic situation. He's lived through one divorce already, and it was horrible. I've encouraged his dad to take time off and plan a trip for him and my son so that they get time together this summer, and he agreed that's best. My best friend from childhood and I married brothers. She is still married to my ex-brother-in-law, and they have a child. We've been working recently on re-establishing our connection that had grown cooler due to distance and some disagreement. This friendship began long before I even knew my ex, and she has been my dearest friend. I care about her a lot, and it's very important to me that we repair our relationship. Our children are first cousins, and my ex-mother-in-law is her mother-in-law. I've been talking to my ex-mother-in-law a lot over the past week. She's sharing a lot with me, and I'm very concerned about her. She's so heartbroken. I'm very upset for her and am trying to offer understanding and advice and just be there to listen to her. She's very depressed. My best friend and her husband, ex-brother-in-law, and child were just at my house for a visit, and while they were here, we discussed my visiting them with my son and possibly inviting ex-mother-in-law to come with me. They both live in other states. One 6 hours one direction, the other 7 hours in the other direction. I had talked to my husband about it previously, with best friend in front of him, with ex-mother-in-law briefly, and also with my own mom. My mom thinks this is strange, and she tells me that this isn't my family anymore and that I should consider my husband. I told my husband what she said. Today, I sat down with my husband and told him that I wanted to start solidifying plans with all involved for this trip. Suddenly, he has a huge problem with the trip. My talking to my ex-mother-in-law, my ex-brother-in-law's wife. All of it. I'm pissed. This has nothing to do with these people being my ex-in-law family. These are two women I love. This is my son's grandmother, aunt, and cousin. I wouldn't even see my ex. It has absolutely nothing to do with him. My old friend specifically said that I needed to visit her next, as she's been to my state twice since I've been to hers. If I don't go visit her after saying I would, it's going to set us back. It might even be the end of our reconciliation. My mother-in-law needs time with my son. I'm so upset about every aspect of this, and I don't know what to do. Edit. Update. Hey all. Thanks very much for all the input. We just spent a couple of hours going over this, and we've worked it out. My husband is feeling insecure over this trip for a lot of reasons, and most of them don't have to do with my relationship with my ex-mother-in-law directly. A lot of you have asked about why he isn't invited, can't go on this trip. It's mainly just logistics, work, interest in seeing the people we would be visiting. I always want him with me wherever I am, and vice versa. It simply doesn't always work out. He has work and would rather spend vacation days for the holidays. I was pretty upset and didn't take time to sift through his sudden, I thought irrational, objections to my trip. I am sometimes emotional when we disagree about my plans because I jump to feeling controlled. Past stuff, not his fault. And he does tend to be like, oh yeah, sounds good, when I jabber about things, and then hit the brakes when I start making concrete plans. My ex-mother-in-law is also very important to me, and it made me upset that he would feel threatened by that. He also called my old friend my ex-sister-in-law, which isn't how I think of her. Anyway, I was emotional and he was emotional. He is worried about us traveling without him. He is worried about us being around people he doesn't know. He is gloomy at the thought of being here alone for a week. He does let himself feel insecure over my past because it's almost totally removed from my present. He has zero connection to it, and I maintain very few relationships from before as well. It's part of the reason I feel so strongly about these two people, for myself and my older son. I didn't take the time to talk it out before I got upset. Conclusion: he needs to trust me to be loyal to him and not to take our kids into unsafe situations because he has no reason not to. I need to not freak out so quickly and communicate better. Oh, and yes, I'm a stay-at-home mom. He's sorry he said funds me. Explain to your husband and parents that this is all about your mother-in-law and best friend. Don't refer to her as ex-brother-in-law's wife. Make sure your family knows it was your mother-in-law who supported you and your son when you needed help, and that you can understand her feelings. Reiterate that they know it's nothing to do with your ex. Like it or not, your mother-in-law is in your life, and she is your son's grandparent. You will be disconnected from them. Don't think of them as ex-family, but extension family. You're want to offer support and help, that's all, which is what a friend does. Stand your ground, explain your rationale, and make sure they are comfortable with it. Don't let them down, as the relationship will never recover. The idea of ex having alone time with your son is a great one. I don't know why you need to meet up with ex-mother-in-law with your son. Why would his grandparents breaking up create a toxic environment? And if ex-mother-in-law is booting your son's grandfather out, why would there be any toxicity left? It's unfair that your son had to deal with your divorce and will have to deal with his grandparents getting a divorce, but it doesn't have to be traumatic. As to your best friend, ex-sister-in-law, I don't know why your husband is threatened by this. But why wouldn't your family be visiting her family? Why is your husband excluded? Looping the ex-mother-in-law in again is probably not helping, but your husband is probably worried you will see your ex. I believe these trips won't overlap, but I can kinda see his worry. It seems like you're holding your son's relations higher than his own stepfather. Honoring those relationships is good, but your new family is paramount. As to your BFF ex-sister-in-law telling you you are obligated to visit her, nah, that's a non-starter. What if you didn't have the money, or a bunch of other reasons not to go to her state? If your relationship with her is that tenuous, she's not your best friend. My stepson's mother passed away giving birth to him, and my husband has always been very sensitive about the topic, which I totally understand. But earlier today, we were all just in the car, and my stepson didn't like the song on the radio, and he said, "Mom, can you change the radio?" which instantly warmed my heart. I love this kid more than the world, but my husband instantly got pissed. He started screaming to Lane, stepson, saying how he is never to call me that, and I just tried to calm him down as quick as possible. First, you are driving a car with your family in it, and second, you are screaming at your kid for something which is completely innocent. And thankfully, just after a minute or so later, he was calmed down, but that was only when he saw Lane crying. And then he started to cry too. He was trying to apologize to Lane, but I don't think Lane was really paying attention. When we got home, I picked Lane up and carried him to his room, and I brought the dog with us because Lane wanted him, and I explained what happened and how Daddy didn't really mean to scream and it was an accident, and he is really sorry and won't ever do it again. Then we played with the dog for a while until Lane said he wanted to go to bed with his dog, so I left them in there after tucking him in. Now, I was, and still am, emotionally destroyed by all of this, but I knew I needed to go check on my husband, and he was in our room crying. He was saying how he didn't mean to scream at Lane and how he feels horrible for doing so. He said he shouldn't have ever reacted that way to begin with, and he said he was worried that would affect my relationship with Lane, and potentially his too. I sat in there just holding and comforting him for a while, but then he said he just needed time to himself, so I gave that to him. And I'm out here in the living room about to cry because I just feel so bad for both of them. Lane because he was just probably being sweet and didn't know what he was really doing, and my husband because he obviously still struggles with this, and hearing his kid call me mom just destroyed him. I don't know what to do. I'm assuming none of this will just roll over from sleeping. I'm assuming this will go on for a while longer. By that, I mean I think Lane might be scared of his father, or he might not want to be with him. And I feel my husband will still be thinking about what all happened tonight and when Lane was born. I am really thinking about getting them both into therapy, and me too if they want me to join. And I definitely understand why my husband doesn't want Lane calling me mom, so I want to find another name he could call me if he wanted. I am just looking for any advice, honestly. They're lucky to have you. That's an incredibly difficult situation, and you seem to be handling it well for both of them. Therapy, especially for your husband, sounds like an excellent idea. No advice, just wanted to say that you're doing great.